Today, I'm going to break down the 4-2-1 flexible fat loss protocol. It's going to help you get lean without giving up your life. Now, I have a confession. I love pizza, barbecue, beer, really good whiskey, all of that stuff. And I fit those into my diet on a regular basis, and I'm still able to stay healthy, lean, jacked, even as a 36-year-old business owner with a lot of responsibilities. And I'm going to teach you how to do the exact same thing. The reality is you do not have to be a social recluse. You don't have to live in a diet of chicken, rice, and broccoli in order to see results. And in fact, for most people, that backfires. Aggressive meal plans, they also backfire because they don't flow with your life. And ultimately, what needs to happen if you want to be able to look great naked without living in the gym and optimize your performance, be able to go to business dinners, be able to enjoy nice dinners with your family, is you need an approach, you need a plan that flows with your life, not against it. So I'm going to break down the 4-2-1 fat loss protocol. Now, before we go any further, make sure you hit subscribe and check the description below because I've written out this entire guide for you. You can grab it for free, no opt-in, no email, any of that stuff, just some value so you can look right naked without living in the gym. Now, let's jump in. What does the 4-2-1 fat loss protocol look like? What do the numbers mean? All of that jazz. So first, 4-2-1, 7 days in a week. 4 days per week, we want to be in a moderate calorie deficit. 2 days per week, we want to push a little bit harder, so a more aggressive deficit. But then we have 1 day where we can be flexible, we can unwind, we can enjoy the party, and we can have a plan that actually fits these things in to a practical and sustainable lifestyle so you can sustainably lose fat and keep it off. Where a lot of people run into issues is they follow plans that are too aggressive and they don't bake in anything that's a reality of their life. Now, let me tell a little bit more about why this or how this really came about. You see, I've been strong, I've been lean, I've been, photo shoots, all that stuff for years, which is great. But things definitely shifted in my 30s. Yes, getting leaner, it was harder, but my business also grew. I now had a team to manage. I had more stress, I had less sleep. And I became a dad. And a couple of years ago, I was getting a bit leaner, getting ready for an event that was down in Cancun. And that happened to be in the first week in January. And so I found myself trying to use some of the same strategies that worked well when I was 25, 28, and even 30 to get lean for this event. And you know what? It was during the holiday season, man. It sucked. Not only did it suck, like there was so much friction between the experiences that I wanted to be able to have, being able to enjoy Christmas cookies and do a lot of these things directly with my daughter, yet I had to be dialed in based on the professional, frankly, things that I have to get done in order to operate the way that I do. So after I got done with that, I stepped back. I'm like, you know what? That sucked. That wasn't sustainable. We need to find a different approach, something that's going to work better and allow me to enjoy some of these things that are also a big part of my life. Because ultimately, remember, fitness has to improve your life, not consume it. And if something that you're doing is not sustainable, the results you get from it will not be maintainable. And so what this is all about is really aligning your expectations and the plan that you have with your reality. And when we do this correctly, that's what sets you up for success. But if you align your expectations, your diet, your training based on somebody else's body, somebody else's physiology, somebody else's lifestyle, there's going to be a lot of friction. And the more friction there is, the less likely it is to succeed. So let's break this down. Let's go over the 4-2-1 fat loss protocol in depth. And again, just remember, you can grab a written version of this down below. That'll break everything down for you. My clients absolutely love it. And I'm sure you're going to find value as well. So here's why traditional fat loss plans fail, especially if you're busy, you're performing at a high level with business, or you have a lot of family demands. Sometimes all of those things combine to make making any progress or any system very difficult when it comes to getting healthier. So the all or nothing perspective when it comes to being all in or all out, when it comes to a diet, when it comes to your training, is very rarely sustainable. And what I found for most people is they can have the best plan in the world, but if it's all in or all out, what happens is they'll do really well for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, but then they're all out because they burn out from the aggressiveness of the plan that didn't fit their life. And then they backslide. They regain that same weight. And so what happens for a lot of people is they lose weight, gain it back, lose weight, gain it back. And they're in this nonstop cycle. And as they get older, those methods, they don't work quite as well. You get more frustrated. You're more stressed. Hormone levels change, right? Sleep changes. All of these different things make this a very frustrating road because it feels like you know what to do, yet the plan is not sustainable for the long haul. So we have to kill that. Next, a lot of people struggle because they don't have something that flows with their weekends or different events. Even though I have an online-based business, I travel quite a bit. I'm seeing clients, I'm doing networking, I'm going to events, I'm presenting, all of these different things. In fact, the last 7 months, I've been on the road every 2.5 to 3 weeks. So living in hotels, Airbnbs, eating at restaurants, entertaining with clients, all of these different things. And so when I talk about this, I'm not just some coach or trainer who's never had that experience of what it's like to travel for work or to close deals over a dinner, right? We have to have something that flows with that if we want to have it something practical and sustainable. Plus, we have to be able to fit in some of the dynamics that occur with our family. right? There's so many life coaches out there, 25-year-old coaches who say we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Just don't eat this, eat that. It's a little bit different when you've got a picky 5-year-old at dinner and you're making multiple different things. Or it's a different dynamic when your partner eats one way and then you want to eat a different way, right? So these things all have to be factored in. And so if we don't factor them in, that's why so many people fail with fat loss. And that's where the 421 protocol can really help you stand out, because they're all based on being robotic, just on numbers. And they don't factor in late nights, work dinners, family dinners, vacations, shit, even if you want to have a couple drinks, right? So we need to factor all of those things in so you have a sustainable long-term way to lose that fat and keep it off. Now, here's the core framework of the 421 flexible fat loss protocol. 4 days with a moderate calorie deficit, 2 days more aggressive as a deficit, and then 1 day as a free day, right? So in plain language, the reason we're doing this, 4 days, I want to be in a slight calorie deficit, which allows you still to function well. You can still be sharp mentally. You're going to have energy to train. You're going to be able to push. We're going to have 2 days where we push a little bit harder, right? So ideally, these would be on days where you do not train, right? So obviously, if calories are lower, our ability to recover and train effectively is going to be compromised. So we want to have 4 deficit days. We want to have 2 days that are a bigger calorie deficit. These help build a buffer, because when we talk about losing body fat, what we need to think about is the overall calorie deficit, not what happens necessarily on a daily basis. And by being more aggressive on a couple of days, we build a bigger buffer for that free day. And then the final 1 day, the goal here is let's hit your protein intake and then have some flexibility so you can actually enjoy life. Because if we've nailed the other 6 days of the week, guess what? Hell, you've built a buffer. You've been in a deficit. And if we still keep a good focus on eating some good quality food, but also some room for flexibility, now you can metaphorically and truly have your cake and eat it too. And so here's why this works so well, just beyond the physiology of it all. So when you're focused and each week you can look at the diet and say, hey, guess what? I can dig in. I can make this work for the next 4 days, the next 5 days, the next 6 days, because I know that there's a short break coming. Where people get stuck is they stay in these long-term diets where everything just feels like an absolute drag. And they start to fade out mentally. They get stressed out. And when we get stressed out and we're in a deficit for a long period of time, well, guess what? Your cravings increase. Your number of fucks that you have to give about staying on track, they go down quite a bit. Even sleep quality goes down. So when we can fluctuate calories up and down and build a buffer where things are more sustainable, that allows you to maintain focus, right? Because if we break it down from being in a deficit, compare the two of being in a deficit for a month, let's say like 30%, and there's no cheat days, there's no flexibility, there's no fun, versus break things down and think every single week, can I dial in for 6 days and then have freedom for 1? Great. When we have this approach, it's exponentially more sustainable for so many people. Looking over the long haul, we've seen numerous studies that indicate when we're in a calorie deficit, not to get too near to here, for above 25 to 30%, we start to see changes in terms of metabolic function. Quick pause, 1 second, guys. Apparently, my camera died, so if the visual is a little bit different, no worries, we're going to keep on rolling. So what happens is if we stay in a prolonged deficit for a long period of time, a lot of people fall off. And the reason is, well, yeah, stress, cravings, all of that stuff. But we start to also notice changes in terms of our thyroid function, in terms of how many calories we actually burn, both consciously and subconsciously. We start to fidget less and NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is a huge driver when it comes to fat loss. And so we have all these mechanisms that change over time. And so when we start to implement something like the 421 fat loss protocol, we can stay more dialed in mentally, and then we give our body enough fuel on that additional 1 day, Saturday, that 1 free day, where we can prevent some of the physiological adaptations that happen that downregulate your metabolism, give you more cravings, decrease performance. We can prevent a lot of those from taking place overall. So the 421 protocol works incredibly well because it helps with your psychology and your physiology to help you lose fat and stay on track. Here's how I set this up. You can pick the days that are best for you, but this is what I recommend. Monday and Tuesday, those are my most aggressive, low calorie days. So the 2 days that are low are Monday and Tuesday. For me, I really stack my day full of meetings. I'm always on the go. I've got a lot of different things going on, and I typically don't train really on those days. I'll go for small walks, but that's about it. This allows me to be fully focused on work. I'm very dialed in, and I don't have a whole lot of distraction going on. Now, I will have my moderate deficit days, so I'm bringing my calories up a little bit on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, right? So my 1 free day is going to be Saturday. But by doing it this way, I'm able to bump my calories up a little bit. I'm able to get some training in on some of those days as well, where I'm not having a huge decrease in terms of performance, but because I've increased those calories up just a little bit, but still being in a deficit, we're still able to push fat loss. And then on Saturday, Personally, that's when more of the social events take place. I always have my hardest training day on Saturday morning, and that's really important to do with that one day, because what it does is it allows you to actually take those additional calories. Your body's going to soak those up like a sponge, but it's actually going to allow you to take those calories, be able to apply them, say, directly towards restoring glycogen, so your carbohydrates that are depleted after a hard workout and being in a deficit. It's going to provide some more support for your immune system. Again, carbohydrates will help reduce cortisol, which is elevated being in a deficit and after training. So those higher carbohydrate days with that free day can also help support that immune system while lowering overall stress, right? And so you can pick whichever day you want for your free day, but I find what works best for our clients is the 2 aggressive days are Monday and Tuesday. The 4 dial back, but still a deficit overall, would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Sunday. And then the 1 free day is on Saturday. Now, this can adjust. This can rotate based on your schedule each week. For example, if you have a big dinner coming up on a Thursday and you know that you're going to be, housing a ribeye and a bunch of hors d'oeuvres and drinking a little bit, cool, knock yourself out. You can make that choice. Just keep the overall structure more or less the same and try to align your training days where they're not on those super aggressive fat loss days. Now, within the 4-2-1 fat loss protocol, you can apply this in a number of different ways. We know that calories are king when it comes to changing body composition, right? So obviously we need a calorie surplus or a protein. So obviously if we want to lose fat more aggressively, we're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive. If we want to have more of a recomp or just like a slight fat loss, then we can be less aggressive. And then if we want to be able to maintain or even build a little bit of muscle, you can still apply that same 4-2-1 strategy and just rotate your calories just slightly. So let me break down each one of these independently. I'm going to be throwing a few numbers at you here, which is why grabbing that written version of this is going to be really important and impactful for you. And so when we think about the first version, we think about aggressive fat loss. Here, what the target typically is 1 to 2 pounds of fat loss per week. So this is an aggressive cut. So what we want to be able to do here, your 4 moderate days where you're still at a deficit will be body weight in pounds times 10. Right. And this factors in that you probably haven't been crash dieting or doing anything crazy like that previously. If there is that difference, that's when you need coaching. So you can work with somebody who can really fine tune all of these things, because if your metabolism is down regulated, you got hormonal issues, general advice is not going to help you. That's why you need a coach. Back to what I was saying, body weight in pounds times 10, those will be your moderate days. So if you're 200 pounds, that's going to be about 2,000 calories. You're going to have 2 hard days. So from there, you're going to drop another 500 calories. So you'll be at 1,500 on those 2 aggressive fat loss days. And then your 1 free day. Your target here is going to be able to hit your protein. And then you've got flexibility in terms of where your calories are at. I don't recommend shithousing 7,000 calories of food, but if you want to bump it up to 3,000 or 4,000, that's going to be completely fine. And you'll be in a good spot from there. Across the board, when it comes to macros, again, there's going to be some individual specificity for every person who does something like this. But the one thing we need to focus on is getting 1 pound of protein per pound of body weight, right? If we do that, frankly, carbohydrates and fat, those can be adjusted based on personal preference and the type of training that you do. For most people, I find that going slightly higher on the carbs and lower on the fat is actually superior, because when you're in a calorie deficit, cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone, is elevated. Carbohydrates, they buffer cortisol, they reduce it, and they're going to give you more energy to train effectively. Low carb diets can work. I've used them many times. I've used them in different phases for clients, but from a long-term perspective, they will have more negative impacts when it comes to downregulating your thyroid and creating more stress, and then also not supporting an optimal training environment. So as long as you hit your calories, you can fluctuate where you're at with the carbohydrates or the fat. If you want to find those out specifically, again, grab the guide or work with me specifically, then always keep that protein at 1 gram per pound of body weight. Obviously, when the calories are lower, those days you're going to have less carbs and less fats, right? But the protein is always going to be the same. Protein stays the same in all of these cases. Now, version 2, this is going to be a bit more sustainable. This is going to be some fat loss and a recomposition. Most people here are going to lose, a pound a week, give or take, which is very sustainable and very practical for many people. This is also going to allow you to be able to perform at a high level, both physically in the gym, but also cognitively. One thing people don't consider when they're on a cut is when we are in that calorie deficit, your brain function is going to deteriorate as well. Your tolerance to bullshit is also going to go down, which can be that can be problematic if you've got a family, if you've got kids, and all these different things pulling you in a million different directions. So with the less aggressive approach, understand that fat loss is going to be slower, but it's going to be more maintainable for you. For the 4 moderate days, what we want to do here is we want to take your body weight in pounds times 12. So if you're 200 pounds, that would be 2,400 calories, right? You can see the formula. Protein, just like we talked about before, that's going to be about 1 gram per pound of body weight. So here, about 200 grams, 800 of your calories. That's 33% of your calorie intake for the day. Now, the 2 hard days, you're going to take 500 calories off. Can you sense a theme here? Now we're at 1900 calories, still at 200 grams of protein, meaning out of the 1900 calories you're having, 800 of those calories are going to be from protein, meaning you have to pull down your carbs, you have to pull down your fat in order to make those numbers work. And then your one free day, once again, we're hitting protein, and then we have flexibility in that regard. Now, you're going to have to finesse these things a little bit. You're going to see how much you can get away with the free day. That's where the individual perspective and the nuance really comes in with this. But again, I recommend, you can definitely have 3,000 calories, even 4,000 calories, but you probably don't want to be eating, the rocks diet and having 10,000 calories with half of it being from pancakes and waffles. And then the third version, I call this the just don't make me fatter approach. This is going to allow you to maintain, maybe even build a little bit of lean muscle and have a recomp. Again, when we are trying to recomp, the progress that you're going to see across the board is going to be exponentially slower than going all in on building muscle or all in on fat loss. And so you have to tailor your expectations accordingly, or everything is going to feel like a failure. Here's how we set it up. This is perfect for the busy seasons, perfect for on vacations. And when you're happy with your body, but you just want to see, again, some gradual improvements. So for the 4 days, these are your gradual, very slight calorie deficit, body weight in pounds times 14. If you're 200 pounds, that would be around 2,800 calories. If you are active and you're 200 pounds, that should not be an issue. If you are inactive and have a high level of body fat, that's going to be a little bit high. You're going to need to be a little bit more aggressive with fat loss. Your 2 hard days, take away 500 calories, 2,300 calories, or 2,300 calories for the day. And again, with that 200 grams of protein. And then your one free day, same deal. Don't go too crazy. Do not try to do the Michael Phelps or do the rock diet, but you can get away with 3,000 calories, 4,000 calories, having a couple of drinks, having pizza, having some fun, so on and so forth. And so in all of these, the weekly structure is the same. What changes is how aggressively you need to lose body fat or how much body fat you need to lose. So when we line these things up, it allows you to stay consistent with your protein, and then we can make those adjustments when it comes to carbohydrates and fats to help bring your calories down to where they need to be. Ultimately, calories are king, but ultimately, can we be sustainable? Can we have good quality foods that are in our diet as well, and making room for the things that are fun so it's actually sustainable? So how should we actually step this up, and what should we focus on individually? So what you should do right now is you should focus on a goal for the next 6 to 8 weeks. If you want to push hard and drop fat fast, be more aggressive. If you want to lean out, but do so without feeling a decrease in terms of performance, be less aggressive. And if you want to enjoy this season right now, but not really gain weight and still have a bit of fun, then that maintenance approach is going to be best. Number 2, you want to pick out your free day. I would recommend trying to keep it as consistent as you can. But like I mentioned previously, you have the ability to make those adjustments as long as you stick to 4, 2, and 1 and nail your calories. Don't get too bogged down trying to be perfect on all these different parameters. If you follow the overall structure, it's going to work over time. Number 3, set your daily calories. So use those rough multipliers and use that as your baseline. Calories are king. You should track what you're eating. If you're not tracking what you're eating, one thing that we built out inside of our coaching program, which has been a game changer for our clients, is we actually have an AI tool where you can take a picture of your food, /meal help, post it, and we will calculate your macros off of that. So you do not have to track in MyFitnessPal, a chronometer, any one of these different things. We have it all integrated in one system where we have the precision data to be able to make the right adjustments with your nutrition without you feeling like a recluse who's always pecking those things into your phone. Set your protein target, 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's what you should aim for. You should hit that protein intake each and every single day. That's a non-negotiable. And now divide your week, pick out your days for the 4-2-1. Then ultimately plan around real life. Your hard days for the diet should be on days where you're not training as aggressively, right? The days where you're training harder, you probably want that free day, or you want the less aggressive diet days, because that's going to allow you to be more sustainable. Now, if you haven't, make sure you grab a link to that guide below so you can look at these strategies and you can deploy them personally. If you want to see how this works specifically in your life, apply for coaching. That is also there. We will break this down, eliminate the guesswork on what to do. Man, I hire an accountant to do my taxes. I have a financial advisor to help me build my wealth. I could figure these things out, or I could hire an expert who does it in a fraction of the time. And that's what I do. That's the way that high performers operate. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels and grabbing all the information, hey, apply now and let's chat. Now, a few more steps and things that you can take. Training, steps, sleep, alcohol, how all of these things really factor in. So first and foremost, lift weights 4 days per week. Ideally, I would say a push, pull, lower, and vanity split. That's kind of what we call our minimalist muscle split. That works really well. And you should be in the gym focusing on taking most of your sets within 1 to 2 reps of failure. Typically, what we're doing is 5 to 6 exercises within a workout, 2 hard work sets, anywhere in that 6 to 10 rep range. That's a great way to build strength and build lean muscle. And on the backside of that, we'll have some isolation work that's really going to help hone in on the specific body parts you want to accentuate a little bit more. Ultimately, you do not have to be in the gym to transform your body, but you have to be consistent over the long haul. The vast majority of my clients are in the gym 45 to 55 minutes, then they're out on to kick ass for the rest of their day. Now, on a cardiovascular side, I recommend getting 10,000 steps a day. This isn't for fat burning. This is for mental health. This is for general health. That really doesn't count as cardio unless you're really deconditioned and you're heaving and hawing like Seabiscuit running around the racetrack at the Kentucky Derby. Hopefully that's not you. But on the other days where you're not in the gym lifting, I would really recommend getting some zone 2 cardio, meaning your heart rate, for example, on 36 is going to be between 115 and 135. It's not so hard that it's going to dig or create a big deficit when it comes to recovery. But what it will do is going to help improve heart health. It's going to improve cardiovascular function and brain function. Frankly, these are things that we need to focus on, especially as we get into our 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, instead of just lifting weights and going for a walk. That comes down to a health perspective more so than fat loss, but I totally recommend making that happen. When it comes to sleep, it's not always perfect. As mentioned, I've been traveling nonstop. In the last 14 days, I've been in 4 different time zones in 5 different states. Normally not that crazy, but sleep has definitely been tough with all of that going back and forth. Regardless, I try to go to bed and wake up at consistent times. So recently when I was in Arizona, I was trying to stay on East Coast time. Was I perfect with it? No. But if we're always going, or if we're dialed in 5 days a week and then we're staying up until 1 a.m. on the weekends, we're essentially giving ourselves jet lag each and every single week. And without that sleep being dialed in, your hunger hormones are going to be all over the map. Cravings are going to be higher. Willpower is going to be wrecked. So dialing your sleep, it makes everything else easier. And finally, alcohol. You don't have to be a monk, but you should not be mindless. When you're drinking, you should be really enjoying the moment. You should be focused on getting mostly calorie-free mixers. I would say wine is okay. If you're going to do a cocktail, try to keep the sugar a bit low. If you're going to do beer, not a big fan, but try to keep the beer light. Don't be sucking down 5 IPAs and wondering why you feel like shit. One quick note when it does come to consuming alcohol is you should treat those additional calories that you're having as either fats or carbohydrates. There are 7 calories per gram in terms of alcohol. And when you do have alcohol in your system, your body is not going to effectively break down your carbs or your fats. And by extension, you're going to be more likely to add body fat from the calories you are consuming, not to mention having cravings and over-consuming food. And before we go, here are some common mistakes and adjustments you're going to want to make, specifically when you're implementing the 4-2-1 flexible fat loss protocol. Mistake number 1 is turning a free day into a free weekend. All right, if all of a sudden it becomes Friday night pizza, Saturday steak, barbecue, and cocktails, and then because you're watching football on Sunday, you just keep that rolling, that's going to be a big issue, right? You can't be off track 3 out of 7 days and expect to see results. 4 out of 7, that's a 57%. You're not going to build an A-level body with F-level implementation. So keep the structure tight. You've got your free day. Be disciplined the other ones. You're going to have to make some trade-offs if you want to look great naked, but if you stick to them, you're going to find that long-term flexibility. Mistake number 2, not tracking anything. Listen, I don't love tracking either. Can be a pain in the ass, but it's not as much of a pain in the ass as working hard, doing everything right, or thinking that you are, and not seeing results. If you track even for 30 days, you can set up and eat the same meals on repeat. That's a huge thing when it comes to eliminating the decisions you have to make around food and making fat loss simple and more sustainable. So track, even if it's for 30 days, either use a great app. There's so many that are out there. It's not rocket science, or work directly with a coach who will show you exactly how much you need to eat, or has awesome tools like we do, like our AI meal analyzer. Then mistake number 3, picking the wrong level. If you're doing this and you're completely starving and miserable, just bump those calories up a little bit, right? Go to the moderate fat loss approach. Your reality has to blend with the approach that you take. If it doesn't, you're going to feel like you're doing everything right, but getting nowhere and being completely miserable. When it comes to fat loss and when it comes to fitness in general, consistency compounds. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency over time. But that's why the 4-2-1 protocol can work so well. And most of all, be patient. Fat loss, it doesn't happen overnight. The 30 pounds you're looking to lose didn't come on overnight either. So we need to gradually focus on shifting our habits, our behaviors, the way that we eat. And when we do, and we have a strategy that aligns with our life, that's how we look great naked without living in the gym. Hopefully you got value from this one. Make sure you grab that guide, drop me a comment with any questions that you do have, and I will talk to you soon.